David Grusch may have been behind the scenes working in Canada, possibly involving the whole Larry McGuire situation and the letter that he wrote to the defense minister of Canada and the possible exposure of the Five Eyes UFO Crash Retrieval and Reverse Engineering Alliance. There's also more news involving Tim Burchett and the whole UFO situation that I talked about previously, as well as evidence of NASA hiding stuff and more. So let's talk about it. Time for another UFO News Roundup. Get in here. This is Jack with Cosmic Road. I talk about UFOs and the paranormal. Please hit like, please subscribe, share on social media, and let me know what you think in the comments below. Okay, I'm just real briefly, I'm going to go over this. There's not a whole lot of solid evidence yet, but this is from a new article in a Canadian newspaper or website. Members of the Pentagon's UFO task force briefed Canadian military officials earlier this year. And, of course, David Grusch was an investigator for the task force. Members of the Pentagon's UFO task force briefed Canadian military officials earlier this year, a previously unreported meeting that was revealed this week. The February 22nd briefing was led by a U.S. Air Force intelligence officer who contributed to a headline-grabbing June 2021 report on recent American military sightings of U.A.P. According to a document released on November 14th, the February briefing was delivered by multiple members of the Pentagon's U.A.P. task force and attended by 10 Canadian defense officials, including personnel from the Royal Canadian Air Force and Canadian Forces Intelligence Command, which is responsible for collecting and assessing military intelligence. The document provided few other details. The article goes on, and there's the documents there. But it doesn't really give us anything new, anything solid, I should say. But, the supposition is that David Grusch was one of the people involved in briefing the Canadian military and may have had some interaction with Larry McGuire. Indeed, I've heard that that is the case. Larry McGuire famously as of recently, wrote the letter to, he's a Canadian minister, and he wrote the letter to the defense minister, suggesting that Canada be more transparent on the UFO issue. And the defense minister replied publicly. Oh, and that letter became, leaked. And so the defense minister was forced to reply saying, be transparent on what? There is no Five Eyes Alliance. You're crazy. If there was a Five Eyes Alliance involved in UFO research, it ended in the 60s. Well, Larry McGuire has since said, actually, no, I wasn't guessing or, talking about some ancient program. I have current knowledge that concrete knowledge of this program existing as of now. And so it is very likely that he is getting some of his information from David Grusch. So a very interesting but still developing story. In other news, Tim Burchett has responded to the Pentagon essentially, denying his version of the events when he and Matt Gaetz and one other congressperson was brought into a UFO meeting and then denied any UFO information, except for Matt Gaetz, who was shown a little something. And, I've talked about that before, and he has talked about that before. But, I made a video on that just a few days ago. And as soon as I made the video, the Pentagon released a statement essentially denying Tim's version of events. But I didn't want to reply to that or make another video on that until I had heard Tim address that issue. And so here is what Tim says, referring to that.
A Republican from Tennessee will be leading this week's hearing on Capitol Hill. And he claims that during a recent trip to Eglin Air Force Base in Florida, he and other lawmakers expected to be part of a briefing on UFOs that allegedly got blocked by the Pentagon and other military leaders, with staff at the base refusing to answer questions brought up by whistleblowers who will testify at the hearing this week. Burchett has accused military leaders of keeping UFO info hidden for decades.
Nothing to do with what we were told we were going to be down there. And we called the meeting. Matt Gaetz basically said, this meeting's over until you get us information we asked for. And then they said we weren't eligible to see it. Now they put out some release that myself and Representative Luna are not eligible to see that. And that's just a bunch of BS, that the Pentagon knows better. And, you know, this is why no one trusts government.
Okay, there you go. Tim saying it's a bunch of BS. The Pentagon is pushing a BS story, which, of course, shouldn't surprise anybody. And, of course, I'm going to take Tim's side on this and not the word of the Pentagon. But let me know what you think in the comments below. In other news, we have the media actually covering this story more and more. And I thought I'd just go over that really quickly. I'm not going to read this article, but this is from the Liberation Times. Just from a couple of days ago. As UFO momentum accelerates, something has to give. Indeed, Christopher Sharp, something does have to give. Over the course of decades, there have been rumors and allegations. Witnesses have come forward alleging that we have been visited. The story goes that sometimes they crash, sometimes we take them down. Perhaps more disturbingly, some are abandoned intact with occupants missing. Then we have the rumors of bodies kept at Wright-Patterson and other facilities, perhaps other nations too. Liberation Times understands that such rumors continue to circulate around Wright-Patterson Air Force Base to this day among staff members. Again, I'm not going to read the whole article. It does say in the coming months we can expect more high-ranking professionals to come forward, all making more or less the same claims. There are craft operating in U.S. airspace with capabilities far exceeding any earthly nation, and there is a monumental cover-up relating to retrievals and reverse engineering programs involving such craft. But here is the juicy part. Liberation Times understands that key representatives in the U.S. Congress are aware of smoking gun evidence, which has compelled them to act. The momentum is now almost unstoppable. And of course, that's the point of the article. Something has to give. I love it. You go, Christopher Sharp. I will link to the article and you can read it at your leisure. I'm not going to cover it all right now, but a wonderful article, and I'm so glad that the media is covering this. Here's another article from The Hill. UFO whistleblower to go before House panel. The House this week will be flooded with talk about UFOs and U.A.P. as House panel gets set to hold a hearing on the increased sightings of such objects. Frustrated lawmakers are demanding more information on UFOs. And it goes on, but the point is that the media is covering it. And here we go, The Sun, with the article about Chuck Schumer and how he's pushing this new legislation. I mean, I love it. The mainstream news is actually covering this. And, you know, it needs to be more. I mean, there needs to be round-the-clock coverage on this. Why is, CNN and Fox not having 24-hour coverage on this historic moment of a UFO whistleblower with evidence of UFO crash retrievals and reverse engineering at a public hearing this Wednesday? Why is that not international news, round-the-clock coverage? This is nuts. This is the biggest story ever, and it's hardly getting any play. But I am encouraged that there are some outlets actually covering that, and kudos to you guys. Oh, and I just wanted to briefly touch on this point. Some people defend Sean Kirkpatrick, saying, oh, well, he doesn't have Title 50. He's not given all the clearances that he needs to do his job, so of course he can't reach a determination that there are non-human vehicles or intelligences. Well, maybe not so much, because he says he has everything he needs.
Is it possible there is some secret program that you're just not aware of?
I don't think so. I have access to anything and everything I need.
Is it possible there is some...
He has access to anything and everything he needs. He doesn't need Title 50 if he doesn't already have it. Maybe he has it by now. I don't know. The point is, he doesn't seem to be seeking anything further than he has right now, and he certainly doesn't believe there is a cover-up or any secret programs or projects. At least that's what he says. And the lovely Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick couldn't be lying about something like that, right? But somebody's lying. Is it NASA? I don't know. They certainly seem to have been covering stuff up for a long, long time, for decades. You know, the Carl Wolf story where it appears there is evidence that he saw that there are structures, non-human structures, presumably, on the moon. And NASA knew about this in the 60s. And there are similar whistleblowers that have come forward saying similar things. But has NASA been faking stuff as well? Not just covering stuff up, but actually faking stuff. This is a weird one. I don't know what to make of this story, but there is somebody pushing for a fraud investigation into NASA for covering stuff up. And, I apologize if this video is very small.
Today I'd like
but that's what we've got. Squint.
to bring to your attention a potential fraud on an enormous scale happening in your county. There's now clear evidence of NASA using numerous methods to grossly mislead the public about astronauts being on the International Space Station. During interior ISS scenes from NASA's own live feed, the use of wires, harnesses, green screens, and virtual reality have been detected to achieve the appearance of a weightless environment. Examples of this include astronauts fading in and out of the screen, green screen glitches, grabbing objects that aren't really there, pulling on invisible wires, getting tangled in their harnesses, and even astronauts appearing out of thin air. This begs the obvious question. If they're really up there, why are they using Hollywood techniques to fake the footage? Now, unfortunately, I can't show you these clips in here today, but I will be sending them to you. Outside the International Space Station, during spacewalks, air bubbles have been recorded on numerous occasions. How is it possible for air bubbles to be present in the vacuum of space? I once questioned astronaut Scott.
Anyway, I'm not going to play the whole thing, but the guy is saying that NASA is faking stuff, and there's some shenanigans going on. I have no problem believing that NASA has some shenanigans going on. They clearly do. They've been covering stuff up forever. Have they actually been faking, astronauts on the space station? I don't know. This is a weird story. I have seen this sort of footage before. I don't know what to make of it. Obviously there's astronauts in the space station. NASA does have people in space. So I don't buy that it's all a fake. So if they are indeed faking stuff, if this footage that we're seeing here is legitimate, that there are green screens, etc., involved in all of this, to what end? What's the purpose? Because they do have people in space. NASA does have people in space. You can't convince me that they don't. But they do seem to be possibly faking people in space as well. Why? How does that make any sense? If you guys can shed some light on this mystery, I would love to hear what you guys have to say. But in any case, it appears somebody is trying to trigger a fraud investigation into NASA over these supposed lies. I doubt there's going to be any progress on that. I doubt anything is going to come of it. But I thought it was interesting and worth bringing to you guys' attention. And I am very perplexed by this mystery of faked astronauts in space when they do have astronauts in space. So why fake it? I don't know. I don't get it. Okay, so that's it for today's UFO Roundup. Let me know what you think about these stories in the comments below. And if you've enjoyed this video, please give me a big thumbs up. I sure would appreciate it. Smash the subscribe button and the bell to be notified of future videos. You don't want to miss a thing. And join me on social media. There's Facebook and Twitter links below. I would love to see you guys there. There are plenty of other videos to check out on the channel. And I'll see you next time. This is Jack with Cosmic Road signing out.